There was a child, quiet, small, and always observing. They didn't cry loudly. They didn't demand much. They just existed. And maybe that's why no one noticed. They sat at the edge of family dinners, where the laughter never reached. They waited for a gentle hand, a proud glance, a word that said, "You matter." But the moments passed, and no one looked their way. It wasn't cruelty. It was absence, and absence can wound deeper than anger ever could. The world around them was full of voices, footsteps, colors, yet inside it was winter, still, quiet, cold. They learned early how to shrink themselves, how to take up less space so that nobody would be burdened by their presence. You see, a child doesn't stop needing love just because it isn't given. They start finding new ways to earn it. Perfect grades, quiet obedience, a practiced smile. They become the child who causes no trouble, because being easy to love feels safer than being real. And every time they're overlooked, their heart folds itself a little smaller, until love feels like something made for other people. You might know that child. You might have been that child, the one who thought, if I do everything right, maybe they'll finally see me. But love isn't a reward, and yet they were raised to chase it like one, running faster, trying harder until exhaustion starts to feel like affection. There's a silence that grows inside such children, a silence that hums louder than words. It says, don't speak too much, don't feel too deep, don't need to often. And so they learn how to disappear, even while being right there. It wasn't the big moments that broke them. It was the small ones, the empty chair at the school play, the birthday candle that burned out before the wish was heard, the report card placed quietly on the table, hoping for "I'm proud of you," and hearing instead, "Why not an A+ next time?" Love was there, maybe, but it was always conditional, given in pieces when they behaved, when they impressed, when they stayed quiet and never caused trouble. No one said, "I don't love you." But love that must be earned feels like a debt that never ends. They learned that affection had rules, that smiles must be timed, words must be soft, and emotions must stay hidden to keep the peace. The child became an expert at reading faces, listening for danger in the tone of footsteps. A single sigh could mean rejection. A raised eyebrow could mean shame. They carried that sensitivity like armor, always scanning, always bracing. Because if you could predict disappointment, maybe you could protect yourself from it. And slowly, their world began to shrink. They didn't dream loudly anymore, didn't speak first, didn't ask for hugs. Because somewhere deep inside, they began to believe a lie, that love must be deserved, and they just weren't enough to deserve it. It's strange how neglect teaches the language of silence, how a missing "I love you" echoes louder than a shouted "I hate you." And as the years pass, that quiet ache becomes part of them, a soft, constant reminder that even warmth can feel cold when it's given without care. When a child grows up feeling unloved, their heart learns survival before it learns safety. The brain begins to whisper quiet rules: don't trust too easily, don't show too much, don't expect warmth, it never stays. You see, love isn't just emotion, it's wiring. It shapes the brain, the heartbeat, the way a person sees the world. In the early years, a child's mind is like wet clay. It takes the shape of every touch, every word, every silence. When love is gentle and consistent, the clay hardens into security. But when love is missing, it cracks. And the cracks never fully go away. They just hide beneath the paint of adulthood. Science tells us the same parts of the brain that register physical pain also light up when we feel rejection. So when that child was ignored, their brain didn't just ache emotionally, it hurt, as if they'd been struck. That's why years later, a single unanswered text, a cold stare, a small silence can reopen wounds that were never truly closed. The unloved child grows into an adult who fears both love and its absence. They crave connection, but connection feels dangerous. They want to be seen, but being seen feels like exposure. Their heart says, "Please stay." Their mind whispers, "Run before they leave." And that's the tragedy of an unloved child. They learn to protect themselves from the very thing they need the most. Because when love once meant pain, safety starts to look like distance. and distance feels peaceful. But peace built from fear is not peace at all. It's loneliness wearing armor. The child who was never loved enough never truly disappears. They just grow taller, learn new words, and wear adult clothes that hide the same old wounds. You can see them everywhere. In the friend who laughs loudly, in the partner who apologizes for existing, in the worker who stays late, trying to prove they're good enough to be kept. They've mastered the art of pretending fine, smiling when they're breaking, helping everyone else because being needed feels safer than being loved. Love, to them, is a test they can fail, so they build walls not to keep people out, but to keep their own hope from escaping. They say, "I'm fine." But what they mean is, I've stopped expecting anyone to notice. You see, when love was once a battlefield, affection starts to feel like danger. Every kind word is double-checked. Every silence feels like goodbye. Every argument feels like proof that they were never enough. So they either hold on too tightly or let go too soon. They crave closeness but suffocate when they find it. Because love still confuses them, it looks like warmth, but it also reminds them of the hands that once didn't hold them. They call it trust issues, but really, it's heartbreak learned too young and deep down. They carry a quiet belief, one planted long ago: if I wasn't loved as a child, maybe I was never meant to be. But that isn't truth. That's trauma wearing their voice. Because the unloved child didn't fail love, love failed them. The mind forgets what it must to survive, but the body remembers everything. Every time you were ignored, your heart adjusted its rhythm. Every time you were dismissed, your breath learned to hide. Every "you're too much," every "not now" became tiny storms beneath your skin. The body became the diary for all the words you never said. You grew, but your nervous system stayed small, still bracing for a voice raised to loud, a face turned to cold. It never learned the difference between peace and pause, because when you lived in a home where calm came before chaos, silence stopped feeling safe. It felt like the warning before the storm. Cortisol, the body's alarm bell, became your constant companion. Even in quiet rooms, your chest waits for something to go wrong. Even in love, your muscles remember leaving. You wonder why your shoulders ache, why your heart races when someone cares, why rest feels like guilt. It's not weakness, it's memory. Science calls it the stress response, but your body calls it home, your brain. Sculpted by rejection, learned to scan for danger. Your amygdala still whispers, stay alert, don't trust calm, and so you keep moving, not because you want to, but because stillness feels like surrender. You've been running from echoes, the echoes of not being enough, of waiting to be chosen. But here's the truth no one told you: the body can unlearn. The same brain that adapted to fear can learn the rhythm of safety. It takes time, gentleness, and repetition, 1,000 small moments of peace before the body begins to believe. This time, I am safe. You cannot think your way out of pain that was once physical, because love, or the lack of it, was never just an idea. It was touch, tone, presence, and the absence of it became part of your biology. Healing is not just in the mind. It's in the breath you finally release without guilt. It's in the meal you eat slowly. It's in every night you sleep without bracing for the door to open. The body remembers, but it also forgives when you finally let it rest. There is a place inside you that no one ever visited. It is quiet, dusty with longing, lit only by the small spark of hope you hid from the world. You grew up thinking love was optional, a reward for obedience, achievement, or silence. But the soul remembers differently. It remembers warmth. It remembers the shape of care. It remembers the ache of wanting it and never quite holding it. The worst loneliness is not being alone. It is being unseen while surrounded by people. To live in the shadow of neglect is to learn a new language, the language of absence. Spoken in sighs, sideways glances, the softest rejections. You carry that language still. In meetings, in friendships, in love. Every time someone turns away, your soul recoils, as if it's being reminded of the original forgetting. And yet, within that pain, a strange awareness grows. The child who was ignored becomes an adult who feels too deeply. Empathy is sharper, intuition keener, sensitivity a gift disguised as burden. You learn the art of seeing even when no one is looking. You learn the quiet power of listening when the world prefers noise. Pain becomes a teacher and solitude becomes a mirror. Through it, you learn who you truly are. But the shadow is always there. It whispers, you are defined by what you lacked, and sometimes you believe it. Here is the hidden truth. The shadow is not your master. It is a map. It traces the places you were unseen, the moments your heart learned to fold in on itself, and the spaces where love never reached. Through reflection, through poetry, through gentle witness, you begin to unlearn the lesson that being unloved means being unworthy. The soul of the unwanted is not broken. It is waiting to be recognized, to be nurtured, to be held with the compassion you were denied. And when you meet it, truly meet it, you begin to understand. Pain is not your identity. It is a language. And now you can translate it into presence, into understanding, into a way of being that is both fragile and luminous. The child who never felt loved enough has a soul that has learned to see what others overlook. The subtle ache in another's gaze, the invisible tears behind a practiced smile, the longing for home, even when home is a feeling, not a place. Your past does not vanish. It is a part of you, etched into your being. But it no longer rules you. You can carry it without letting it weigh you down. You can turn awareness into care, scar into insight, absence into presence. And so, the soul of the unwanted finds a way to be whole, not by erasing pain, but by honoring it, not by seeking permission to exist, but by choosing to exist anyway. The child inside you is still here, quiet, watchful, waiting. They have known neglect, the invisible cuts that never healed, the silence that spoke louder than words. But listen now, that child is not broken, not beyond repair, not incapable of love. Healing begins the moment you stop asking, why didn't they love me? And start asking instead, why don't I love myself yet? You begin with small acts, a gentle word to yourself, a hand held softly against your own chest, a breath that says, I am here, and I am enough. The world may still move around you, chaotic, unyielding, indifferent. But this time, you move with it, not to disappear, not to vanish, but to stand, to claim space that is rightfully yours. You were never too much. You were never hard to love. You were surrounded by people who didn't know how to hold you. But now, you can. Love begins with recognition, seeing the child within, naming the ache, offering the care that was once denied. You may stumble, you may falter, old shadows may rise, but each act of self-compassion is a rebellion against the story you were given, a rewriting of the narrative that once told you do not belong. The process is slow, sometimes invisible, like water carving stone over decades, but it works. The nervous system learns to trust calm, the heart learns that warmth is possible, the soul learns to rest, and from this healing, new strength emerges, empathy that is not fragile, love that is not conditional, presence that does not tremble at the absence of others' approval. You discover that the child who once felt unseen is capable of seeing deeply, of holding others gently, of building bonds that do not echo the neglect of the past, but the care you now choose to cultivate. Relearning love is not forgetting pain. It is integrating it, turning it into wisdom, into a way of being that honors both past and present. And perhaps the most profound truth, the world still moves, but now you move with it, aware, whole, present. The child inside is finally met with love, not borrowed, not conditional, but love that simply says, you exist, therefore you matter. This is the redemption of the unloved child, the quiet miracle that turns absence into presence, neglect into compassion, silence into expression. And as you step forward, you realize healing is not an ending. It is a beginning where the child once forgotten can finally feel, I belong, I am enough, I am loved. The world still moves, but this time you move with it, and you carry both the child and the adult with grace, courage, and the infinite possibility of being fully seen, fully felt, fully alive.